there was an unspoken rule in New York that you had to basically be down by law, so to speak. And there was a way or procedure, process to go about to figure out how you can be down. Obviously, learning how to do the latest dances, being aware of the certain, song tracks that were out and the events that were happening, like the block parties.
Cool. Let's get started. So today is Monday, October 10th, 2021. Who are we speaking with?
You're speaking with Shannon. Dance name alias is Which Way Sha. I'm originally from New York City, borough of Staten Island, and I'm living abroad.
Awesome. Where are you living?
I'm actually living in the country of Sweden, in the European country of Sweden, Scandinavian region. Been here for 13 years, ongoing.
And what brought you to Sweden?
I actually dancing. I had a dance gig or event that I was, hired and requested to come participate in judging and then teaching some workshops. But interesting, at the time, I was actually in Denmark, which is, it's south of Sweden. And I had been staying there for about a year. Yeah, related for dance reasons. I was teaching in a dance school there for like a 6 months, like 12-month scheduled semester. And then I relocated to Sweden, Gothenburg, Sweden, which is like the second biggest city in Sweden.
What's it like to be Black in Sweden?
Man, it's actually, the interesting thing is that the misnomer about the Black and the white, it's not really an issue here. I mean, there's there's a big population of East Africans allegedly living in the areas that are supposed to be ghetto, but they're compared to the United States, they're not at all. I mean, but yeah, there's a lot of Somalians, Eritreans, Djiboutians, if I'm not saying that correctly, Ethiopians. Then you have a lot of Persians. You have Iraq, Kurdish. I mean, you could just go down the whole gambit. You have some people from the South America here, a good population, Brazilians, Mexicans, Uruguay, something else, some others are missing. But the issue with racism, no, it's not. It's nothing that you would make it a focal point on, unless you're from the United States and you come with that. It's kind of like an undertone of our condition of being, I guess, subjected, having some subjugation in our life. One point in not to go so far into it, I was at an H&M store some years ago, at least like 6 years ago. And I had that inclination of like the whole Black persona and against white. Not that I even talk like that here because they don't speak English, they speak Swedish. So, but I was standing in the store and there was a man that came in, a Caucasian man, and he came pretty close. And I was saying to myself, this guy's, he's coming too close to me. He's, it's odd. It's not comfortable for me. And then he's trying to occupy the space because he feels privileged. And then I walked away and I moved and I was annoyed. And I happened to look back, like after I went like 5 feet, and he's like in his own world, which they are normally here in Sweden, like oblivious, like really, to many things. And then I realized like that's my own, haunting demons that are coming from where I'm from. This man doesn't care if I'm whatever color, or even if I smell. And a friend of mine who's living here from the Bay Area, Damon Frost, he came here in '86 for dance reasons. They call him the Rubber Band Man. He said to me one time, he said, "Oh, I had edited a dance event. It was something that went on. I was complaining about the dancers, and he's like, "Oh, I still see you. You still have that American way about you." And I'm like, "What?" So I went home because I was in Stockholm. He lives in Stockholm, and I'm thinking about him, like, I'm cursing him out in my mind, and And then these experiences started to happen to me, like the one I explained, and other things that I came into, other information that I can get into later related to dance. That was like, okay, I have to explain this to my brothers and sisters at home. It's not really something that is an ism in the world. It's something that is really dealt out for people in the United States purposely. And yeah, I mean, the East Africans, they ain't calling themselves. They look at you and me as foreign, and they'll look at. I've experienced it so many times here, and they look at the Swedish people, and it's like they're all. It's not really a social thing here, but they'll have more of an acceptance and a familiarity with them against us. So, and that explains a lot once you were here for some time and you see it. But, yeah.
Compare and contrast living in Sweden versus Denmark.
Denmark is similar to New York in the way that you have to well, in my condition, I had to kind of go through a struggle to maintain an apartment, whereas and also the people are a little bit more involved with each other and including myself outside of whatever you do with your your work related life. Sweden, as I said earlier, there's really no socialization here, so there is not a welcoming way of people valuing you as a person, understanding that you go through things and maybe you need a friend to call or talk to. None of that really happens here, not even with the people here.
Really?
Yeah. But it goes back. Like the popular information about Sweden, the Swedes, is that it was a peasant society and it was really in a poor state. Like that's why the big influx of Swedes came in the early 19th century to America. But that story is a little bit exaggerated. It goes further than that, back to the 17th century. So yeah, I can go into a little further into that.
What is your intention when you dance?
First thing is to have fun, like that youthful jobble time, and also to be involved with that. It's like a celebratory activity. So it's not something I can do by myself. Obviously, there's music and there's others watching or dancing themselves. So feeling involved.
Describe the feeling when the DJ is playing your song, you're on the dance floor and you're in the zone.
It's yeah, wow. It's like how I can say it is, it's like a ritualistic moment for myself where I go into, reliving not just my experiences, but the experiences from this great sound, this whatever it is, being the music, be it somebody singing or rapping. So I'm embodying and encompassing all of those dynamics with that, those those very favorite kind of songs and tunes. Like if you go to, something that you really have an affection for, like your wife or your significant other, and obviously it's not about you anymore. It's an overall experience to how the life can grow together. That's the same thing I realized that is happening with the favorite songs, the party rocking ones for me. Yeah.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Staten Island in a hospital used to be called St. Vincent's. I think it's West Brighton. I forget the name of it fully. I grew up in the neighborhood of West Brighton in Staten Island. In the project area, these particularly homes. They're called the Markham homes. They're not high-rise projects, buildings. They're just like homes. And then eventually my mother moved us out into a house, an apartment house, but in the same neighborhood.
What kind of music did you hear around the house as a child?
I heard a lot of disco, in the category of disco, a lot of soul. Yeah, so what is it called? I forgot the description, but the Motown tracks. My mother was really into that, that music was, yeah, rock and roll, some of that, R&B. Later on, when my father, he introduced me to bebop. No, and not just bebop, doo-wop, really, doo-wop, yeah.
Tell us about your discovery of hip hop music.
Oh, wow. In the parks, in the neighborhood where I grew up, there was a well-known person, DJ, named GMan. Maybe it was a group, but we just knew him as GMan, one person, and he would come out on the weekends in the summertime, set up in the schoolyard, public school 18, where I actually went to in my youth, and he would set up in the schoolyard and play music, play those break beats and instrumentals. And even on the days that were happening, they still happen in New York City, like the special summertime days, the neighborhood would have a day. He would, him and some others would come out, but I just remember his name. And as well as the famous group from New York, from Staten Island, that put the island on the map, the Force MCs, Dr. Rock and the Force MCs. We started to travel out of our neighborhood and go to the different other hoods and enjoy those block parties. So it became like our mission. Our mission statement was to go to each neighborhood and to get down and represent.
How did you learn hip hop dance?
I was watching some of the older guys in my neighborhood, and in the big park, in the Markham homes, there was a park, the hugest park in the development. And the song the DJ was playing, it wasn't GMan, it was somebody from within the Markham homes. It was The Atomic Dog by I forget the artist's names. Dog Catcher.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys were going around in a circle, and they was doing like this kind of, popping electric boogie action, but they was doing it imitating as if they was catching dogs. So they was the dog catchers. So I got inspired. I had to be like 8, 9. And then I went home. I was practicing all the time in the mirror in the bathroom. My older sister and brother was getting tired of me like occupying the space. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And then talk to me about becoming a man by being a good street dancer.
There was an unspoken rule in New York that you had to basically be down by law, so to speak. And there was a way or procedure, process to go about to figure out how you can be down. Obviously, learning how to do the latest dances, being aware of the certain song tracks that were out and the events that were happening, like the block parties. As special, also a key thing is getting the proper clothes, sneakers, attire, a haircut, some of the paraphernalia. So all of this manifested into basically you becoming more mature, from a teenager to more mature stage, where age didn't really was considered. And for me, I just become more groomed as to being able to hold my own and be down in a mature stage of that time in my life. You understand what I'm saying? So kind of pushes you into manhood. And this happened for me. It happened like by 14. By 14 years of age, we was in Manhattan. We was getting fake IDs. I went to Latin Quarters when it was mainly it was on actually 50, what is that? Not 50, 47th Street. And now I think it's a big Japanese restaurant. But just being able to get fake ID, learning how to get fake ID, how to speak to the person who's an Arabic guy on like Times Square on 9th, 8th Street. There was a store that used to sell fake ID cards, you know, all that whole procedure or way of becoming.
So many memories.
Word.
So you started out in hip hop dance. Talk to us about your transition from hip hop to house dancer.
That's interesting. That actually took place in Albany, city of Albany, by 1988, early 88. My friends who were Chris and the brothers Glenn and Dion, they were brothers, they all relocated to Albany for purpose of going to school, a change in lifestyle, especially through education. For education, I should say. And I was left alone in New York on Staten Island. So I just decided to go. It's like, okay, I'm going to Albany. Got some money from my mother, I went to Albany, 1987. It just so happens that my friend Chris went to the college called Hudson Valley Community College, where a lot of people from New York City was going, from Staten Island and Brooklyn. And who was one of the people who was there from Brooklyn was Khalif Sellers. And Chris, my friend Chris, his last name was Hopkins, him and Khalif Sellers would try out for the football team because they both was playing football in their high school days. And they met each other from the football practices. And Chris told us about Khalif being this dancer from Brooklyn. And he did, he danced differently and he dressed differently. So when we met Khalif, me, Glenn, and Dion, by that time I was there, I was living in a apartment with Glenn and Dion, and Chris was living in another apartment closer to the college. And he introduced us to Khalif, and Khalif was doing club dancing, what was later to become house. And he would dress with these penny loafers. He would wear these jeans with the knees cut out, ripped jeans basically, and like what do you call it? A collar button shirt. So we were like, oh, that's different, but it's fly, because we was just straight hip hop. We had the cameos, the Gumbies, we had the skids, we still was dressing like that. So then we seen him dance, because we went to a party in the College of Albany, the University of Albany. And there was another person there who's a well-known DJ, DJ Raz, from Coney Island, Brooklyn. He was going to Albany State University, and he was having, special parties he would have, and he would play house music. So we went to that party and we seen Khalif really, get down and demonstrate this way of dancing. And we were like, yo, we gotta learn that. So then we involved Khalif with our crew that we started in Albany, which was a hip hop based crew with two other guys from Albany. So we involved Khalif in it. And then he started to basically bring us to these parties more, dance, in this way. And we got inspired, myself in that, like that. Although we were still doing hip hop, we had hip hop shows in Albany. We gradually, and myself, went into dancing club, because that was the thing to take over for even the youth that was going to colleges, not just in Albany or upstate, just in general on the East Coast.
Wow. Wow. What an incredible story.
Crazy.
House dance. Define it.
For me, from the New York experience, it's now that I would say it's a mix. It's a mix of various club, street dance styles from the early 80s, late 70s. but you don't have to be restricted to being able to show that you can do or represent this way of partying or dancing or having fun. So it doesn't have it's allowing you to have some freedom. Maybe because that's coming from Chicago. I've been there, and Detroit, the influence of it. So I think that takes it's an undertone on how you can, at least New Yorkers can have fun with partying in the way that they may have been dancing in a block party or a jam, which was fun, but it was also, you had your boundaries. You had your boundaries. Yeah, house is a conglomerate of a lot of stuff from New York, the Midwest.
Let's go back to Albany. So after Albany, you formed this crew. What happens after Albany? Where do you go and how do you continue this house dance journey?
Well, after Albany, I came back to New York in 1989. Precise, no, 88, 89. I was told that there was a party happening that Khalif informed me about at the Tunnel. I think it was the night that I had arrived. It was a Yeah Buddy party. And these parties were promoted by P. Diddy. P. Diddy was in the club scene. We met. We all was like one clique going to the clubs and dancing. And yeah, I got my first taste of that club life in New York. But at first, I wasn't able to get into the club because, of course, the person at the door, his name was Kenny. If you didn't have the right attire on, doesn't matter how expensive it was, if you didn't look unique, you wasn't getting in the club. So it took me for some time to get into the club, maybe like three to 4 months. I was getting in no clubs, standing outside freezing in the winter time.
And then after the Tunnel, what other clubs did you go to back in the day?
Sound Factory, up the block on 27th Street. Then Red Zone was happening at that time. I forgot the clubs downtown, the name of it. At the World in the Lower East Side. Choices we end up going there, the after party, or yeah. House Nation, the traveling party through all the boroughs, or mainly the 4 boroughs of New York. Yeah.
And then Demerarra's used to have a lot of house dance parties as well.
Yeah, exactly. Demerarra's, yeah. Forgot about that.
Describe your dance style.
Would say, what is that word? I don't want to say mix, but yeah, I guess it's a mix of hip hop and clubbing. And interesting, there was a term that it's a music category too, when we started to be designated as outside of club dancing, hip house, which was a mix of hip hop and house, not just from dancing, but also from the music. The original artist from Chicago, I forget his name.
K Wise?
Not K Wise, he's from Jamaica, Queens. This person from Chicago, he has a documentary on YouTube. He came out with this style because he was straight hip hop in Chicago, but they wouldn't sign him. They wouldn't give him no record deal. So he mixed the rhythms of hip hop, the beats of hip hop, and he just kind of sung over it. And he put like the 4 on the floor on it. And then hip house was created, like 1988, late 87.
What's your go-to song where like, I want to hear this so I can go off?
Wow, what house? That would be maybe Acid Crass is one of them. And I like Inner City. I can name some groups. Inner City. Of course KY Stomp. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
move your jack, your body.
Mhm.
Most of the oldies from the early 90s.
So what prompted your move to Europe and to leave America? What made you say, I'm done with this?
Uh Another adventure. I was having some troubles where I was living at. I was living downtown Brooklyn, and the person I was living with was a roommate. We was having difficulties living together. He's actually a well-known DJ now in New York. But so when I actually traveled to Europe, Denmark for a gig, and things went awry in New York City for my living situation where after the gig, I really didn't have a place to come back to. Like literally, definitively, there was nothing to come back to for me to live. So I made a decision to stay in Denmark because if I came back to New York, I'd have been like in an uproar, like the Hulk. So it was a choice that it was basically of the situation. There was really nothing for me to decide against.
Understood. Um, let's talk about house dance and teaching. You're also a teacher as well as a practitioner. Compare and contrast teaching house dance in different parts of Europe. So is there something different in how you teach or how it's received in Sweden versus say Germany versus say Japan?
Oh, absolutely. Here in Sweden, they follow what the terminology or the practice of pedagogical ways or pedagogy, excuse me. So from that, learning the way we dance in the club and what you've seen in the club, it doesn't have a sensibility to go by. So it's very difficult to maintain a consistency with teaching here, as different from if I go outside. And then that could be right to Denmark, especially to France, Czech Republic, definitely Japan. Japan's experience is they're very oriented between the teacher and the student, which is from the dojo, the sense of the dojo. So there's an honor there. So the honor for them is that it's going to change into, or it does change into discipline where they have to be able to express and demonstrate correctly, or they are not accepted themselves. Outside of that, Europe or it's yeah, I could say it's a give and take. It's a give and take. And one thing, particularly not just in Europe but in general, when I do teach house, especially from particularly in this time of my life, is I understand that it's a journey that I have to be able to show because I've went through a lot and I know that house is that from New York City. It's a lot of involvement with activities, so I try to express that, and that's interesting for people to learn from me because they're seeing me as particularly in one um, one kind of way that I'm known or popular at to be able to show, like for example, jacking. myself and some others have introduced jacking to the world. So it's like, oh, okay, that's his forte or his specialty. So there's really nothing else that can be shown. So that's in general. But it's still a lot of fun.
When and how did house dance become an international phenomenon?
This is another account, adventurous account. Okay, so the first dynamic take of people, of getting into house and becoming a phenomenon, a thing of great importance was Japan, where a lot of us were going to Japan just because we were involved with each other and we danced house. We would go to Japan and we would do a workshop and we would do a show. It was not so much with dance events and battles. It was workshop and showcases of the New Yorkers or dance fusion from what we call today, and elite force and blah, blah. At one point in Japan, it became a well-known, popular thing for the Japanese to start teaching others themselves. And then they began to get the recognition and the honorary status as well as us. So I think around, I'm going to say a circular time period, mid-90s, let's say 94, 95, maybe a little later. Maybe let's say 94 to 97. There was a Japanese man, who relocated to Paris. His name is Tamaki. Tamaki went to Paris, maybe for educational reasons to pursue his career, because he's a videographer. He does very unique things and futuristic things with creating ways to look at videos or understand how videos can be used. But when he was there, in his first experience, he met the dancers who were, in Paris that were doing maybe hip hop or what they call hype, which is like 90s kind of style. So he came with him with all of his all of the videos that were always being recorded when most of us were going to Japan and dancing with, also with the people from Los Angeles, the Boogaloos. And he started to have like together gatherings with some of these people in Paris, and introduce and show these videos on what was going on in Japan and this particularly new way of dancing, which was house and this new approach to hip hop. So the Parisians are looking at this and they're getting inspired. So he's telling them who the people are in the video and blah, blah, where they're from. And of course, they're from New York, like myself, and Los Angeles. So then within the late 90s, the Parisians start to fly to New York and just go into the club and look and scout us out to learn from us. And at this time, many of us were teaching at Faisal Studios. We were teaching Japanese in Times Square. Faisal Studios was cheap. It was $5. You ran out of room for like, I think, an hour. And people were charging the Japanese 10 times more than that. So then when the French came, then it was an expansional shift in how it gets to Europe. But this is because of Tamaki.
Wow. Fascinating. I did not know that piece of the story, and I thought I knew everything. Wow, really insightful. Talk to us about, how do you feel about, there seem to be a plethora of house dance competitions around the world. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a tremendous appreciation because they're doing it, but the but is at the same time they're having this amount of events, the experiences they have don't reach that, you know, they don't compare to that. And the experiences of going to these places to seek out those that were a part of this movement, not the popular ones, and understand through a forensic approach, because it's easy for those Europeans, as well as maybe some of the Japanese or Asians too, to get into that studious way, because they're doing it from the beginning when they trekked to the United States to seek us out. And most of us didn't know really how to even spell money at the time, let alone budget it. But they have that capability, you know, available at their you know, dismissal, or even admissal. They can use it for whatever reason. So the way they're having these events, they should have an interest to travel more so into the places that allowed this to happen, and meet and seek out that community of people. So it's a give and take on development, and at the same time, destruction.
Mm-hmm.
For me.
So how do the economics of house dance work? And this is what I mean. As a DJ, maybe you get a name for yourself. If you're really lucky, you get a residency in Ibiza. If you're moderately lucky, you get a residency in London. If you're so lucky, you have a residency in New York City. Otherwise, you're on Twitch, right? As a producer, you put out a record. If you're lucky, it gets picked up by some top DJ and it's get played or whatever. So you can see the economics there work. You're DJing, you get paid for the residency. Producer, you get paid for a hit record. How do the economics of house dance work?
Similar. You have to be economically astute, meaning that whoever you are, group, individual, you got to be a part of the popular trend. Your name, your has to be in, you know, in the conversation. Other than that, it's like a dime or dozen game, meaning that it's just like a system of selling products, but yet it's not. There's no, you know, it's not legislated. It's not put forth in the I don't want to say commendable, but yeah, you understand what I'm saying. Maybe I'm going too far with that word expression.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
But it's very much similar. But in Europe, as well as in Asia, there is a circulating market where, and it's because of the availabilities of the resources that they have, which is different from United States, that can be achieved if we, and I had offered this before because I'm here now, if we utilize each other, this understanding, because it's nothing really we need to learn, because it's something we already have come across in our individual pursuits to maintain a lifestyle, whether going to school, learning a particular trade for a career. This is something that it can be used for the means of like establishing an event called house. There's events called House Dance Forever. There's events called House Dance Europe, and this is the event of the first one that I mentioned is in Amsterdam. The second one is in Italy. I forget the area in Italy. Maybe they change venues sometime in Italy. But you see, these places are just, or these entities, they just came up through house because the resources are for them to utilize. Now to come together as an umbrella unit is the difficulty, and it should come from people from home, like myself and others, whether we're dancers, DJs, production artists or not. We should come together so we can have this as the nucleus, the initiators for these house dance of whatever. And not to come against them on what they're doing, it's just expanding it globally. And it can deal with some of the conditions we have today, the crisis. I say this because I traveled last year. I traveled for reasons of business, but as a dancer. And I observed on how to travel through regulational ways as a, let's say, foreigner here in Europe. During COVID, when it was indicated in a popular sense as a tourist couldn't travel if you didn't have the proper legitimation for you to go to one country to the next. But if you look at some certain simple regulations and learn how they apply to you, if you fit those descriptions, like if you put yourself in that position, because I have a company here, I have an entertainment company here in Sweden, as well as it's being registered in New York. Just that is not of a big deal. Once you, as somebody coming from the States, realize that you can have something outside of the States and then bring it back and have it, blossom for not just myself, but everybody in the sense of house or whatever. So I don't know if you.
Yeah, I follow you. Understand. I follow you. Looking back on your career, what would you do differently?
I wouldn't teach in a singular fashion, something that was collective, effectively collective, whether it be it's hip hop and house is what I'm talking about. Neither one. Would I put myself in that position of representing alone. I know I know the involvements. I know the people involved.
Describe the current state of house dance.
Oh, it's in a funny way, it's like it's almost it's in the area of leniency. Leniency meaning it's like not so many people are following heartfelt and strongly. Not so many people are influenced by it because of another new version, Afro house or Afrobeat. So with dancing, I would say with dancing in the music too here in Europe, the generation that is following anything about house is into that particular description. Afro, whatever, this is the choice. This is the new welcoming feature to dancing, whether it could be clubbing on a block or whatever.
Define soulful house.
Colonel Abrams.
Well said.
Rest in peace.
What advice would you give to the next generation?
Enjoy what they do. Enjoy what they're a part of. And have a tendency, an inclination, and desire to seek more about what occurred before and what can come into what they're doing for the future.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Wow. I gotta take a quote from my friend. Rest in peace. Shake Matthews. He says, you already know. He used to always say, you already know.
That's perfect. What's next for, how did you get the nickname Which Way Sha?
It's either something that some of the guys, I would name some like Brian Green, maybe even Khalif, Big Leaf. Some of these guys came up with that phrase because I went so many different directions with dancing. But I said to them, it's like, because I come from the original roots of hip hop. When you're in the park or you're in the block party and you're doing those dances, like if you start breaking to the instrumentals, so I used to break, actually I still went back into it. You're going all kinds of different directions, but at the same time, you're watching who might try to attack you or your homeboy. Because you may be in territory that is not okay for you to be there. So it's like a paranoid kind of, it just becomes a part of the movement.
What's next for Which Way Sha?
Growth, cultural growth and economical development. The culture. I have to say this, I have to put this out. Here in how I started, okay, in Sweden recently they had for the city of Gothenburg, they had the 400th year anniversary on June 4th, the 4th of June this year. What that meant is Gothenburg was in existence for 400 years. But what is not popularly known is that the Swedish Empire was in the Americas in the 17th century, which is like 1621. They give dates of 1638. And where it was located was what is the state of Delaware, what is the state of Pennsylvania, what is the state of New Jersey, and parts of Maryland. The cities were Philadelphia, Trenton, Camden, Wilmington, and eventually New York. So when they had the 400th year anniversary, the embassy of the United States in Stockholm also had an opportunity or an event based on this situation or strengthening or making it a better situation economically for United States, the entirety of United States, and the western part of New Sweden. So we applied, me and my companion as our company, and they elected us. They gave us the position.
Wow, congratulations.
Yes. And it's called Go Rambo. Why it's called Go Rambo is because Rambo was actually a person by the name of Peter Gunnarsson from Gothenburg. And when he went to the New Sweden colony in the 17th century, he named himself after the mountain they have in Gothenburg, which is called Ramberget. And he called himself Rambo. This information is not put in the historical books that we have learned. So we don't know that the movie Rambo, First Blood 2, is depicting this situation. And also, Rambo was a dance of hip hop in like 1985, 1986. So we patent or we campaigned this description as Go Rambo. And mainly it's about, strengthening the cultivation that took place for us, not from that time, from the 17th century on up to now, through dance, through whatever works and possibilities or services and jobs that anyone can demonstrate or offer. So we're documenting everything by video and audio, and we have to present this to the granting officer in the embassy in Stockholm. And what they're going to do is they're going to edit the information and they're going to put it out as a public program for the government in Sweden and the government in the United States.
That's pretty freaking incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
So we can work, yeah, everybody out there, we can work together. Whatever you have, contact me. We'll try to document you, because all we're going to do is just basically, we're the coordinators. And it's going to help individual circumstances for people as well as group, because people are going to want to buy or, you know, see what you're about, what you do, and oh, I'm interested in that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a fantastic interview. It'd be good to see you again in person post-pandemic, because we shouldn't wait 20 years. Next time I'm in Europe, I'll see if I can make my way to Sweden. I'll come by and say hi. We go for a coffee or something.
Oh, definitely, man. We need to do that. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Thank you so much and have a good evening.
Okay. You too.
All right. Peace, my brother.
Bye-bye.
All right.